Hello everyone, this is Darkon and welcome to Final Fantasy 15, everything you need to know about the game before you actually, get it. Mostly this is meant for people who have not pre-ordered yet, wondering about it, or just in general, a lot of questions you just might have about the game itself. So I'm going to start off with the first and most obvious question that very many people ask that are not familiar with any Final Fantasy series is, do I need to play the other Final Fantasy games? Simple answer is, no you do not. Each Final Fantasy game, even the spin-offs, like ones such as Final Fantasy Tactics, still good games, each one is contained within its own separate universe. Even though a lot of them might share common themes, such as earlier Final Fantasies share common themes involving 4 elemental crystals, and just like Final Fantasy 15 shares a similar mythos with Final Fantasy 13. Not exactly the same, but again, they do share similar mythos with the creation of their worlds and all that kind of stuff. But simple answer is, yeah, you don't need to play any of the other Final Fantasy games. But of course, another bit of a sub-question, what should I play or watch before Final Fantasy 15? Now this one is quite a bit different because with some Final Fantasy games, or more precisely with this one, there are a few things you might want to consider watching before actually playing the game. Precisely, there are 2 main things. One of them would be Final Fantasy King's Glaive, a full CG movie, or CGI movie, however you want to put it. Although I don't know how canon it might actually be, it is, however, a great idea of just how the universe works, just in general. It is supposed to take place roughly around the same time that Noctis is, not actually around. He is actually, as far as I can tell, told by his father, leave before a bunch of shit goes wrong. More or less like that. You follow around different characters and basically get the idea of, just how everything works. Such as things like just how incredibly important the crystal is one of the main themes in the game, as well as the fact that, if you don't know about the mythos, a little bit of something here, it is not a spoiler. The old nations, or some of the other nations, used to have crystals. Very similar, or exactly the same as the current kingdom of where Noctis was born. By the way, Noctis is also the prince of the kingdom. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head right now, and someone will probably yell at me for that later. But each of the old kingdoms used to have crystals. They were lost throughout the eras, or however you want to put it. Basically, throughout all the years, they were all lost between war, between just stolen, or any number of things. The only known crystal that's, widely known is the one that the current kingdom has, which was stolen by the enemy. But pretty much that you want to try out for King's Glaive. The other thing I would definitely try, even if you don't care for the King's Glaive one, would be Final Fantasy Brotherhood. This gives a lot more backstory to how Noctis and the other characters like Pronto and so on, how they all met Noctis, how their lives were before. How they all met, how they grew up together, more or less. At least some of them anyways. And of course, moving on to the next thing, Chocobos and Moogles. Chocobos and Moogles, if you don't know, are pretty much a staple in any Final Fantasy, no matter what spin-off. These things are absolute classics throughout the entirety of this series. For one thing, Chocobos, you'll probably have already seen them, and you most likely might already know what they are. Chocobos are essentially the yellow flightless birds that can move very fast. Well, that's pretty much the whole point. If they can't fly, they're going to run like hell. Chocobos, however, there are quite a few different variations of different Chocobos. For instance, in older Final Fantasy games, there was the black Chocobo that could fly all around, but not over mountains. The white Chocobo that, when you went over towards it, touched it, it would help you regain your health, HP, same thing, MP, or both. And sometimes, you would basically just, instead of spending a tent to rest, this Chocobo would just do everything. Only found within Chocobo Forest, technically. or in Final Fantasy VII, where you could actually raise a bunch of chocobos, race them, breed them, in order to get the rare golden chocobo, which was the only possible way in order to get the materia in Knights of the Round, which is primarily the only reason we actually ever bothered to raise a chocobo anyways. And Knights of the Round was the most OP creature, summon within the series. It literally is the most powerful thing. It one-shots the last boss, essentially. And of course, Knights of the Round is like basically saying Knights of the Round Table, Arthur and all the knights go in, attack it when you use the summon. Or materia in this case. Same thing. And going on towards summons, sorry about that, I do have my talking points here, just losing my train of thought for a second. In reference to summons, this one is quite a bit interesting. Throughout different Final Fantasy series, summons take various stages in, how important they are to the story. In Final Fantasy IV, they play an important part, but not the main part. They are actual entities within stories, characters, and so on. Final Fantasy V, they take a bit more of a backstory, but they are still, some of them are still entities. Some of them are related to your story in a bit. Or in case of Final Fantasy VI, they are integral to the story. They are a massive key point throughout the entirety of the series. In various Final Fantasies, they do take certain scenarios. Like Final Fantasy IX, again, they're important. Or in things like Final Fantasy XII, where the traditional summons are the airships and the actual summons themselves are quite a bit different. In case of Final Fantasy 15, they take a bit more of an old traditional one. I think, as far as I can tell, at least at this point, because we haven't actually gotten to the game yet, I believe that the summons themselves are more closely related towards, I would say, a bit between Final Fantasy 4 and 6. Primarily because of the lore and backstory of what the summons are meant for. At the moment, what we do know of the backstory of the summons is that they're kind of like guardians of the Earth, essentially. And, yeah, I just about said guardians of the galaxy. No. Their entire point of the entirety of the world is that they protect it. They won't interfere with humans, and they don't really care about humans too much. They're not really malevolent against them, but say if humans were involved in just about destroying the entirety of the planet and everything in it, they would most likely, their mandate would be to wipe humanity out. Other than that, they do seem quite a bit different as well in older Final Fantasies. In this case, when you summon them, we don't know the specifics of each summon. However, we do know that they are massively powerful, and in some cases, you can't just simply summon them on a whim. And like in older Final Fantasies as well, you do have to fight, as far as we know, you do have to fight most of them in order to actually use them. In other words, you have to prove yourself in battle against them. Most likely, it's not a simple thing if you're thinking of, yeah, if I could kill them, why would I need them? In this case, it's more like, you're not going to kill them, you're just going to basically say, I'm strong enough to handle your power without, exploding. We also know from one thing, if you watch The Kingslave, we believe, or at least what many have believed, and I think there might be an official bit about this, is that some of the Knights of the Round do make an appearance at the end. Like I said, if you watch Kingslave, you'll get the rough idea, and then I won't spoil too much now. Of course, the next part of my talking points would be the combat. The combat is action-oriented, although there is a wait mode for those who might be entirely unfamiliar, which is perfectly fine. If you're not quite used to it, you can pause it, choose an attack or something, or just figure out what's going on, where the creatures are. Can I use this spell without hurting anyone else? Which is something I will talk about in a second involving magic. Like I said, it is quite action oriented, but is very good. You do get, I believe it's something similar to combo attacks with your other allies. Or I honestly can't remember all their names right now. Sorry about that. But essentially, when you attack, they might attack as well and be like a combo. Think of an old... I'm just going to use Chrono Trigger for a reference here for those who don't know, maybe who do know. In Chrono Trigger, there was dual text, which was like two characters doing a special attack together. It'd be like, say, using a fireball and a wind spell, and you would create a larger fireball. In Final Fantasy XV's case, it would be something similar, not in reference to magic itself, but you know, the whole bit. So you'd say you'll attack with a slash, and one of the other characters will, you know, rush in with a spear to finish it off. And reference to the weapons, only Noctis can actually change his weapons, which you'll primarily control most of the time anyways. And the other characters have specific weapons. I'm not entirely sure on 100% how much of their weapons you can change. I do believe that they have particular weapons, although to make them more powerful, you might be able to, you know, give them better ones. There's a lot of things we don't 100% know about the entirety of the game, obviously. We know quite a bit, but just how far it goes, it could be anything. In reference to the magic of the combat as well, well, I'm not 100% sure on this, although I believe this is quite true. You can stack the same magic that you make. I will get to making magic in a second. When you stack that magic, or when you make the sorry, lose my train of thought again. When you make magic, you'll, well, actually, I should just skip over ahead with the magic part. When you use magic, there'll most likely be a cooldown. You do make magic. You gather them like nodes throughout the world, and it's more like alchemy, I guess. You mix them together, and you create the spell. I believe that there are recipes as well, but you can make your own. The more of the essence of different magic you put in, the more powerful the spell will be. This would be the difference between casting Fire, Fire-a, or Fire-ga. Or if you don't know the exact terms, Fire 1, Fire 2, and Fire 3. You can use this in any number of ways, including making very powerful spells. Although if you make a very powerful spell, once you use it, you're not going to have much. So it might actually be more worthwhile to actually say, make a bunch of Fire 2s, or like the or regular fire, rather than the Fire spell. Because you're not going to use the most powerful spell against a bunch of small adds, and then you have nothing for, like, say, the boss. For customization, and this is how quite a few people... Oh, let me go back to magic for a second. I forgot about this. Like I said, you can create a lot of variety of spells for making this stuff. And if you watch some of the preview videos that people have done already before, you can actually make very interesting ones, such as lightning that drops an AoE pool of poison. There you go. Now, sorry about all this stuff I keep forgetting about, but now customization. As far as I know, it's not something, don't expect it to be the absolutely massive customize everything. You do have obviously something similar to talents or whatever else. As you level up, you can spend these points towards, you know, say if you're more of an offensive person that likes to use the one giant slash to do most of the damage rather than stagger the enemies for a second then go in for a big slash, you can choose options to, you know, obviously go towards that point. And more of the looks department of the game, yes, you can change the character's clothes a bit. Not sure exactly how extensive that is outright for that. But we do know you can also change the actual regala, which is the vehicle that you use most of the time. There are various skins that you can get. Even right now, you still might be able to get a few from pre-orders and other various things. For myself, I have the Platinum Leviathan skin, as well as the Cindy skin as well. Some people who pre-ordered from the PSN, or basically digitally, they would have the 16-bit buddies one. take a look online for a lot of these skins if you want. They are actually some of them are pretty decent. Some of them, they're all skins. That's all they are. They're not going to do anything else for you. And they look cool, pretty much that. And for other alternative things, fishing you can do as well. Each character actually has their own little thing that they can do. For instance, if Noctis can fish, Pronto does photography, there's also cooking, and I can't remember what the other one was, but sorry about that. In the case, each character has their own level and these special little things that they can do. For instance, like I said, Noctis can fish. However, when he does get the fish, what can you do with it? Is it just for fun? Well, actually, you can use it in the next one, the cooking. When you do camping, or I'm not sure if going to a hotel you can do the cooking, I believe you should be able to do it anyways, doesn't make much sense otherwise. You can use that fish that you caught for the cooking. And when you do the cooking, yep, you can get various bonuses and buffs. It's something that's pretty much taken right out of an MMO style thing. You can choose between the cheaper stuff, which is basically, you're probably going to have it just simply because you got it randomly from the creatures, or if you're more precise, you go for the ingredients, you can get a more powerful buff. The buffs themselves are temporary, but they're probably going to last you long enough until quite possibly the next time you do the cooking, which is roughly about the same time you do the leveling up. I will get to that in a moment as well. Now, the photography, as I know, it's just for fluff. But as Pronto levels it up, you'll get like these awesome little pictures of you doing things like in the middle of battle. So like say, you know how in some cases you wish you could take that picture of just that moment when you cast a spell, or when you just land right on top of a giant creature's head, skewering a sword right through it. It's quite possible that Pronto will be taking a picture of just that right time and moment. I don't know how extensive that can get, but still, it is pretty cool. And then you can just share them online with people, or you can look back and say, I remember when I did that. That was pretty cool.
May the gods forgive me.
Now, although this is just a rumor, or a little bit here, I'm not 100%, so don't quote me on it too much. It is possible that the second half of the game might be a bit more linear. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but there you go. If it's true, well, it's probably not going to be as bad as people think. Then again, some points in all games are going to be linear. It's no different than, say, the final area of, say, some other RPG where, yeah, you got this one little continent that you have to go through in order to get to the final boss. It's probably similar to something like that. You can go exploring around the world, as we've seen before. The fun part about that, though, is that it's supposed, as we've been told, it starts off pretty quickly like that. You're going to pretty much almost right from the start be in an open world. The regala that you have, you can drive around, or you can get, and sorry, this is going to drive me nuts, I still can't remember the name for some reason. Basically, one of the character will drive. He'll drive in the daytime. If you want to drive at nighttime, you have to do it manually. Pretty much that. Fun thing, however, is on the regala, you can actually change the radio to old Final Fantasy songs as well. And if you want to get more of them, you can buy them as items from various points in the game, and quite possibly find them, which is actually not bad as well. Now, in reference to, before I get to leveling up, I do want to reference quickly that the DLC, so far what we know of the DLC is stuff where it basically gives you a bit better weapons at the start. They're not going to be OP stuff that's going to last you through half the game. It's most likely stuff that's going to last you through, say, maybe 20% of the game. It's basically just to make things a bit easier for you right at the start. Who knows, but we'll have to wait and see for it. There's apparently a holiday, I believe something around Christmas type of DLC. Don't know what that's going to be about. Again, it could be like various skins of, characters maybe wearing, Christmas type costumes, or, their weapons might look you know, candy cane colored. I mean, it's happened. That kind of stuff has happened before, and yeah, I wouldn't mind just having the character just swinging around a giant candy cane sword every once in a while. The other thing for the DLC is that there's also supposed to be what was it called again? I believe kind of like stories or something, focusing on each character themselves. Don't know exactly at what point it's gonna happen or precisely when, but you know, we'll see it as it comes out. But it's supposed to focus on each main character, well, each main character in your party, as well as an expansion of some sort. Don't know exactly what that's going to be about. It could be any number of things. Now, for the final talking point, leveling up. When you level up by resting and or camping. You don't actually, anytime you can level up, say in the middle of battle, you just gain a bunch of XP and now you can level up. You won't actually level up until you actually rest. In other words, until you go camping in a hotel or just outright camping. You're not, at that point is when you actually do level up. It's the only way that you can, and basically it's kind of telling you frequently go back and do it. Frequently go to camping sites if you want to actually use that XP of yours. Well, sorry for the bit of the ranting and the long, the long talk there. I did obviously lose my talk. Never mind. I'm just going to stop right now. I am completely losing it. In any case, this was Darkon. If you think I missed anything towards the very end, leave it in a comment below, and I'll try to answer the question you might have. I know at a certain point it's kind of a pain to actually look for particular questions, and you just simply don't know the answer to it. I know I've had that a few times, especially when trying to find out questions about magic. In any case, this is Darkon, and, well, I hope you have fun with this. Please press that like button down there, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. So long, and farewell.